Wow. There is a possibility, repeat, possibility that former Vice President Mike Pence might challenge for the 2024 presidential nomination. All signs indicate that former President Donald Trump is going to run again in 2024, which would mean that Mike Pence would be competing against his old boss for the nomination, assuming Pence, in fact, does this. A lot of it depends on how Georgia turns out. The Trump-backed candidate is ahead. On the other hand, if a Trump-backed candidate doesn't win, Mike Pence might be encouraged to join Georgia. We're going to talk about that in a second. But let me tell you how this works. Assuming Mike Pence decides to jump into the race and challenge Donald Trump, because after all, Mike Pence did not go along with the so-called insurrection of January 6th, here's how it's going to roll. The left-wing media is going to love all over him for having the quote-unquote courage to challenge Trump. Just that they loved all over John McCain, Maverick John McCain, until he won the nomination. And then they trashed him like they trashed any other Republican. The same scenario is going to hold here. Assuming Mike Pence were to somehow get the nomination for the Republican standard bearer in 2024, they'll love on him because he will knock Donald Trump off the perch. After which, they'll go back to calling Mike Pence racist, fascist, sexist, homophobe. That's how it rolls. So let Mike Pence be forewarned. They're going to love on you for a while. And keep in mind, big newspapers like the Washington Post, they have never endorsed a Republican for president. Never. And the New York Times has not endorsed a Republican for president since 1956. So they'll love on him. They'll lick all over him until and unless he gets a nomination. Then they'll revert to calling him a fascist. Now, about this business that somehow, because Joe Biden's poll numbers are so low, the powers that be running the Democratic Party, the ones telling him what to do, the Obama crowd, is somehow going to kick him to the side and kick Kamala Harris to the side because her numbers aren't much better. Please. You think Hurricane Katrina was bad. Wait until you see Hurricane Kamala. That is a Category 5 hurricane. If she is perceived as having been kicked to the side, if she is perceived as having been so disrespected that they're going to put somebody ahead of her like a white dude like Buttigieg, are you kidding me? Black females are the most loyal part of the Democratic base, and they will not stand for it. So please, if Joe Biden somehow is too infirm to make it to 2024, and there's a good chance that he is, they are stuck with Kamala Harris. Otherwise, they run the risk of a mass defection by the most loyal part of their base. That would be black females. Now, I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump or Mike Pence if Mike Pence succeeds in getting the nomination, or Mike Pompeo, or whoever it is. They won't do that. But they will stay home and they will argue that they have been extremely disrespected by the Democratic Party in exchange for their undying loyalty. So please, it'll be entertaining. Now, on to Ukraine. Russian envoy has now resigned. His name is Boris Bondarev, 41 years old, delivered a resignation letter, and in the Associated Press, they have excerpts from his letter. Quote, "For 20 years of my diplomatic career, I have seen different turns of our foreign policy, but never have I been so ashamed of my country as on February 24 of this year," alluding to the date of the big Russian invasion. They've already invaded Crimea. And when have you seen anything like this? He continues, "The aggressive war unleashed by Putin against Ukraine, and in fact against the entire Western world, is not just a crime against the Ukrainian people, but also perhaps the most serious against the people of Russia." Again, this is their envoy. He right now is in Geneva. I bet you he keeps his Russian butt in Geneva. It's intolerable, he said, what my government is doing now. As a civil servant, I have to carry a share of responsibility for that. I don't want to do that. Am I concerned, he wrote, about the possible reaction from Moscow? I have to be concerned about it. Damn right he does. Some said everybody disagrees, but we have to keep working. While others replied, shut up and stop spreading this bad influence, especially among younger diplomats. Not all Russian diplomats, he wrote, are warmongering. They are reasonable, but they have to keep their mouths shut. As to whether or not he plans to defect, he said, quote, I didn't think so far ahead. He said that those who conceive the war want only one thing, to remain in power forever, live in pompous, tasteless palaces, sail on yachts comparable in tonnage and cost to the entire Russian Navy, enjoying unlimited power and complete impunity. He also railed against what he called the growing lies and unprofessionalism at the Russian foreign ministry. He talked about their foreign ministry, Sergei Lavrov. He said this about him. In 18 years, he went from a professional and educated intellectual to a person who constantly broadcasts conflicting statements and threatens the world with nuclear weapons. Today, the Russian Foreign Ministry of Affairs is not about diplomacy. It's all about warmongering, lies, and hatred, end of quote. And have you seen any pictures of Vladimir Putin's yacht? I mean, 4 or 5 swimming pools, dance halls. I mean, it's like a city in the water. I don't know how much it costs, but some estimates are $500 million. I've often even heard almost $1 billion to build the boat that Vladimir Putin has. A guy that apparently underwent cancer surgery, unclear what he has, unclear who's now in charge, but apparently the Russian military has taken parts of eastern Ukraine, although there are conflicting reports about whether or not they're able to hold that territory. But this is a big, big, big deal, the fact that this Russian envoy has quit. And a number of Russian generals have been killed, and at least one reportedly was killed by his own soldiers. And it is estimated that as much as 1/3 of the Russian troops are now considered to be incapacitated. Supply chain concerns, supply line concerns, unclear exactly what's going on in the East. All I know is this, that even our experts assume that Ukraine would fall in a matter of 2 to 3 days, just as they were wrong about the stockpiles of WMD, just as they were wrong about the willingness of the Afghan army after we pulled out to retain control. The U.S. intelligence service blew this one big time by underestimating the ability and the will of the Ukrainian military to fight off Russia. It's now almost day 90 into an invasion that Vladimir Putin clearly thought was going to last only 2 or 3 days. Reportedly, he has sacked a number of Russian generals, including his upper intelligence officers who gave him bad intel. Why did he get bad intel? I'm not sure that they were wrong about the intel. They probably thought the boss did not want to hear bad news. And that's what happens when you have a corrupt, inefficient state. You produce a corrupt, inefficient military. We're going to come back and talk about Stacey Abrams walking back her negative comment about the Peachtree State. Don't go away. Stacey Abrams, a once and current candidate for governor of Georgia, who, by the way, when she lost her race in 2018, said over and over and over again that she was a victim of voter suppression. I guess it's okay when she says it. Her Twitter accounts have not been suppressed. When Donald Trump says it, well, you know. So she's with campaign supporters, and somebody ratted her out. Somebody disclosed with this video exactly what she said to supporters about how bad her state is. Watch this.
I'm running for governor because I know that we have to have a conversation about who we are in this state and what we want for each other and from each other. I am tired of hearing about being the best state in the country to do business when we are the worst state in the country to live. Let me contextualize. When you're number 48 for mental health, when you're number 1 for maternal mortality, when you have an incarceration rate that's on the rise and wages that are on the decline, then you are not the number 1 place to live.
Yikes. One of the worst states in which to live because of where it ranks on mental health and because of its incarceration rate. Maybe a lot of people in Georgia are committing crime and that's why they're behind bars. Would you like to let them out? How much better would it be to live in Georgia if all the bad guys were let out because too many bad guys are behind bars? Now, my dad is from Georgia, from Athens, Georgia. And Georgia used to be a very, very racist state. But in case you didn't know, she lost the gubernatorial race by just a smidge. And Raphael Warnock is one of their senators, a black guy. Now, after the video came out, and I'd love to know who put it out because this was supposedly in front of a bunch of supporters. Maybe one of her supporters was offended and put it out. I don't know. In any case, she's now walking it back.
I think it was artfully delivered. My point was a point that I've made many times, and my passion in making this point is important because we are listening to Brian Kemp give narrative about a record that does not reflect reality. The more I go around the state, the more I talk to people who are deeply in pain, who are concerned about the fact that just recently, he has declined pandemic SNAP relief for 1.6 million families that are struggling to find the way to take care of themselves and their children. We're trying to find baby formula. He has said no to $120 million for those families. He struck $4 million from the state budget for HIV and AIDS protections. These are communities where we are number 1 in the nation in HIV diagnoses. And so my point is well intended, which is that for so many Georgians, this is not the number 1 place to be, but we have the capacity for greatness. And if people didn't slice the pieces they like and actually listen to my entire narrative, my point is that I want more for Georgia. I believe in our greatness. I moved here the first time because my parents brought me. I came back the second time because this is where I want to live.
Is she accusing the media of splicing her comments up? The left-wing pro-Democrat media that I had to deal with when I ran for governor? Say it ain't so. Now we're going to get back to Georgia and what happened in Georgia regarding its voter suppression laws. Hint, they broke records as far as voter turnout is concerned. But first, I got a few more comments to make. I was stopped by TSA once, and I am TSA pre-check. So I go up to the guy and I give him my boarding pass and my driver's license. And it was actually a woman. And she looks at my boarding pass, looks up at me, looks at my license, looks up at me, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then she went over to a woman who appeared to be a supervisor. And the supervisor looked at my boarding pass, looked at my license, looked at me, and they both came over. And the supervisor said, "It says here on your boarding pass, you are a female." And I said, "Well, I do swim for the University of Pennsylvania swimming team." And they both started laughing. And the woman who was the supervisor says, "I know who you are. You ran for governor. You're Larry Elder. You're on Fox News. I know you're a man. Come on through." Close call. Now, my former opponent Governor Gavin Newsom is running ads here in California. He's running for re-election, I've mentioned before. But one of the ads he's running says over and over again, he's fighting Texas. He's fighting Texas. And I just had a kind of a suggestion, constructive criticism. How about fight a little bit for California? Do something about the homelessness. Do something about the crime. Stacey Abrams was talking about how her state ranks at the bottom because of mental illness. Our state ranks at the bottom in terms of education, reading and math scores, and people are leaving the state for the very first time. People are moving into Georgia, but they're leaving California. What would have happened to me if I had said California is the worst place in which to live? Quick thing about sports. I've been watching the NBA playoffs and watching these amazing athletes. And I made an observation years ago because of watching a couple of very good athletes when I was growing up, high school level. And they clearly could have gone somewhere had they devoted their time and energy to getting better and better and better, and had they had the appropriate guidance, but they didn't. They ended up not doing very well in life. And I've observed something. For every LeBron James, he's one of the best basketball players ever. There are a bunch of LeBron James right now who are what are called playground legends. These are people that go up to the local park and do pickup games and demolish the competition, and then sit around talking about how they could have made it to the NBA, how they should have made it to the NBA, how they would have made it to the NBA had it not been for this, that, and the other. They're now all aging, bad knees, bad back because you go out on these hard courts. You don't have any medical assistance. You get hurt. You just suck it up. You go home. And a lot of these guys are now broken down, sitting around talking about what they could have had, should have had. And a lot of them are blaming, wait for it, systemic racism. When in fact, had they applied themselves, or had they been lucky enough, as LeBron James was, to have a role model intervene and keep them focused, they could have made it. It's just kind of sad, isn't it? Now, I overheard this in a Hollywood bar, a bar where a lot of people in the industry assemble. My girlfriend is an ex-actress, so she goes to a lot of these bars and places. I overheard somebody say, and they were talking about some production, it was a joint effort. I put in the effort. He smoked a joint. By the way, for every troll on social media, and I'm very active on social media, I was on my way to getting 1 million followers on Twitter. All of a sudden now, last 3 or 4 days, I'm stuck at exactly the same number. By the way, those of you who are on social media, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram. Maybe I can get to that 1 million threshold. But for the last several days, I've been stuck on just one number. And every now and then I'll read some of the comments just to amuse myself. And for every troll who accuse me of hating myself, there are a whole bunch of them who accuse me of being arrogant. Can you pick one? That is a true story. Because the store was minutes away from closing, the parking lot was empty. I parked in handicap parking so I could be closer to the door. So I get out of my car, I run towards the door, and a security guard said, "Hey, what's your handicap?" And I said, "I have low self-esteem." He laughed and said, "I needed that." We come back, we're going to talk about some deep thoughts from Kamala Harris. But first, please go over to Epoch Times, EPOCH, to continue watching the live stream of this show. We have been banned, castigated, demeaned, abused by YouTube and other social media platforms. That's why if you want to continue watching the show live, and I recommend you do, because coming up is going to be an interview with Steve Forbes about inflation, go over to Epoch TV right now. I'll be right back. People have been asking me, what have you been doing with your life since the election? Well, the truth is I've been enjoying life, riding my bike around town.
Oh, they're not wearing a mask.
I've taken up a little bit of fishing as well.
Elder kills innocent fish.
And I've been posting on social media. Oh, come on. Listen, if you're tired of the censorship as I am, I've actually got some great news for you. Check out EpochTV.com. It's a brand new censorship-free video platform where you'll find not only my show, but other deep documentaries, great content, and honest movies that bring you the news without all the spin and the false narratives. So check out epictv.com. I'll see you there.